Hey, welcome to the Leading with Gratitude. I'm your host, Chester Elton, the apostle of appreciation. And this amazing production is brought to you by the incredible people at the Methods Network. Well, you know what? I always say, give us 30 minutes. We'll give you information, inspiration, and the insights and methods and tools for you to build your own culture of gratitude. Incredible guests. I want to introduce you to two of the most interesting people I have seriously ever met. They are the accidental uncertainty experts, Erik and Emily Orton. Let me give you a quick bio on both of them, and then we'll get to it. But Erik first. Erik writes plays and musicals and books. He won an Emmy Award, a Telly Award, and a Cine Golden Eagle Award. He's directed and produced events at Radio City Music Hall, one of my favorite venues, off-Broadway and regionally throughout the U.S. Check this out. He managed Broadway shows and tours including Wicked, the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, which is hilarious, Les Miserables, The Phantom of the Opera, Fosse, and many others. In 2018, he achieved a lifetime goal of climbing El Capitan. He enjoys rock climbing, sailing, surfing, scuba diving, writing, and one of my favorites, flying kites. He loves thinking and speaking about living deliberately. He's the good-looking guy in the blue sweater on the left. Wave to the crowd there, Erik.
Hello, hello.
Emily, his delightful wife, is not an adrenaline junkie. She is quick to point out. She's just curious. A former English teacher turned homeschool mom. She's an avid journal keeper and blogger. Her writing is featured in Dare, Dream, Do. Remarkable Things Happen When You Dare to Dream by Whitney Johnson, a good friend of ours. Emily speaks and writes about living with purpose. Emily's curiosity has let her become a sailor, a scuba diver, rock climber, world traveler, and most recently, a surfer. We'll probably get to that. She explores the world inner and outer with her husband, Erik, and their 5 children. They are the co-authors of the amazing book, 7 at Sea. Here's my pre-press copy. You should all get a copy, available on Amazon. Well, that was a mouthful and doesn't even come close to explaining how amazing this couple is. Welcome to the Leading with Gratitude show, and we want to talk about turning worry into wonder. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us. We're so happy to be with you today.
Yeah, thanks, Chester. It's good to be here.
So Erik, talk to us a little bit about behind the book, the story behind the book. Why would you take 5 kids and yourself, so 7 people, to sea for a year? How does that happen?
Well, it started out innocently enough. Sorry, you'll have to forgive the sirens going by. That's the 3rd since you started doing the intro. I don't know if you guys can hear those or not.
But our healthcare workers are hard at work here in New York City, so we support them.
So to your question, I had produced an off-Broadway show. It was a big risk for me. I was stepping out. It was just as our 4th child, our son, was being born, and it was a complete flop, unfortunately.
Beautiful show, financial failure.
Exactly. So it took the financial wind out of our sails, and I was trying to figure out which way was up. I got a temp job downtown in the financial district as we were sorting ourselves out, and there happened to be a sailing school right downstairs. And I never really thought of myself as a sailor, but I kept talking to Emily about it, and she kept encouraging me. And finally, I got up the nerve to step into the sailing school and ask them what it was all about, and they could not have been nicer. And the one trick was that they said, because you work nights, the job I had was nights, and I wasn't really available on weekends. They said, to create a class for your schedule, we need 4 people. And the only people that I could get to take this class with me were Emily and our 2 oldest daughters, who were how old at the time?
9 and 11.
9 and 11.
Really, like out of 8.5 million people, it was down to us.
So the four Ortons, we took the class. The main thing we learned was that we all got seasick, but we passed. And from there, Emily and I, we kept taking classes. We took a trip to the Caribbean for a week where we sailed bigger boats in bigger water, and we found a little
certified.
Yeah, we certified, and we found a little place nearby in New Rochelle where we could take these little day sailor boats out with all of our kids, and we'd go out once a week and we would just sail. And finally, I said to Emily, I said, I think our family on a boat would be enough universe for me.
Really?
And she thought that was pretty dang romantic. And she stuffed down all her fears, and she said, well, when would you want to go? And that's when I said, I want to go before our kids start to leave home. We have this one window of time that will never come again. So let's try and do it before Karina graduates and goes to college. And that's when we went to work and we started to window shop for sailboats and save, and one thing led to another, and we found ourselves living on a sailboat in the Caribbean.
I think I know Eric said beforehand he thought the 7 of us on a sailboat would be enough universe for him. But I think everyone in quarantine with their families right now knows that that's not what he discovered was the reality once we actually all got on a boat. So we had to develop a lot of coping strategies because a family is a big adventure, and being together all the time is not easy.
Yeah, that's the nutshell version.
That's why I really wanted to have you on the show. Yeah, I wanted to have you on the show because now with COVID-19 and everybody sheltering in place, you had your whole family in this very confined space, traveling the world. And by the way, we want to welcome to the show folks from Texas, Dubai, India, Georgia, and Lebanon. So we've got an international viewing audience here.
Wow.
Talk to us about, and Emily, I want this specifically for you to talk about, you talked about when you were on the boat, because you've got to homeschool your kids. The whole world doesn't stop. Kids have still got to learn, and you've got to feed them, and everybody's got to get along. You talked about you had to be emotionally resilient. Talk about that. I think there are a lot of people out there now that need some emotional resiliency. Talk about how you develop that on the boat.
Well, when we first got to the boat, I'll just skip ahead in the story. We had the biggest dreamer's remorse. Things did not go the way we expected. We weren't able to just get a bunch of groceries and head out on our journey. We got stuck. And I think a lot of us are feeling stuck right now. And all day, every day, Eric and I were troubleshooting. Everything felt so high stakes, and we were considering the costs and just frazzled at the end of each day. And our kids said, we came on this trip to be together, and that's not really happened. When is that actually going to start? And it was good for them to hold our feet to the coals a little bit. And we realized we cannot live in crisis mode. Even though a crisis is happening, this is a marathon, and we have to set some boundaries on it so that we can regain some of that emotional resilience. You can only run off adrenaline for so long. And so we stopped by first actually saying, what makes your day successful, and establishing some routines that were built around that. And like you always say, Chester, in your wonderful book about gratitude, one of the key sources of that emotional resilience was feeling grateful. Because when you are feeling panicked, your brain just gets tons of this stress hormone, cortisol. You move into fight or flight mode, and hasty is not helpful. That is not where you make your best decisions. You have to come to a place of calm in your mind and heart before you're able to be using that, prefrontal cortex and making well-considered decisions. So for us, one of the things that really helped was a gratitude practice and just coming back to it on purpose.
That's wonderful. Let me ask you a little bit too, because you had to homeschool your kids obviously during that year, and a lot of people are homeschooling right now. What are some of the lessons you learned about schooling on the boat?
Well, for us, it kind of happened in reverse. We started homeschooling before we moved aboard the boat, and that's kind of what gave us even the idea that we could have the autonomy to separate from everybody else's schedule and make decisions just for our family. So we had already started homeschooling, and it was very different on the boat. But some things that when you first come new to the idea of homeschooling, and bless all those parents out there, kudos to you. What you're doing is so courageous.
This is a hard way to get thrown into it, for sure.
I was not the first person on board with this idea in our family. But what most people do is try to recreate the school environment and the school scenario. And I was a public school teacher and a homeschool teacher. And I would suggest to parents what has worked for me and what may work for you, if it feels right, is to first of all, relax. Just take a breath. Again, moving from a place of calm. There's not going to be an emergency. You don't need to be in a new role as teacher. You're still the parent. And if you lean into your role as your child's ally, you can be yourself. You can sit with them. This is a good time to lean into empathy and understanding. And actually, you will probably learn so much about your child as you have this experience with them. You're going to be more familiar with their day and what they think and what's, coming into their mind than you ever have been before. And that can be pretty exciting, because those milestones, like learning how to stand up or learning how to walk, they don't end. And I've been seeing parents online saying, I taught my child how to subtract today. And those milestones keep happening, and you get to be part of that, so you can embrace that. And I think the last thing for me that I would say is just really harnessing the power of home. You don't have to recreate a school setting. You're not working with 30 kids who all need to move at a certain pace. You're working with your kids, and you can be comfortable. You can have a plate of cookies on the table. You can take a break. You know, you can do, it doesn't all have to happen in 1 hour.
Right. Let me ask Eric, in your book, you talked about it's better done than perfect. It's better to just get her done. You don't worry about it being perfect. And talk a little bit about that. Perfection is sort of the enemy of getting it done, right?
As we were looking at different people who are going to head out and sail, we found a bunch of mentors, and each one did it their own way. Some people had a lot of money. Some people did it on a shoestring. Some people went around the world. Some people stayed in one area, and everyone had their own beautiful experience. The one story that has always been with me is, you're anchored in the Bahamas, and you're right next to some mega yacht, and a 3-story mega yacht with a big water slide coming down it, and we're there in our small boat, and we're looking out at the same beautiful sunset and the same scenery. Whether you're there in style or whether you're there on a budget, it's better done than perfect. We sometimes get caught up in trying to make something impossible happen in an impossible way, but when we just figure out how can we make it happen under the circumstances that we live in, we can pull off some pretty cool things. We sat on a beach one time in the Bahamas, and it was after a long 4-day crossing that it was just terrible. We were sick, but we got to this beautiful spot, and we just looked at each other, and I said, I can't believe we've made it this far. This can never be undone. And once it's done, it kind of takes on its own kind of perfection, because it actually happened, instead of being this wishful dream that's out there that never actually becomes anything. It's just an idea.
Yeah, so really enjoying that moment, right? And relaxing and taking it in. We're getting some great questions coming through for both of you, and I really like this one. How do you maintain your confidence in your decision amidst, you made this decision and this goal amidst all this uncertainty? How do you remain confident? Because I've got to believe there were times when you kind of leaned back and went, really? Like, this is what we decided to do?
Well, Emily mentioned that as soon as we got to St. Martin, where we bought our boat, we had dreamer's remorse. That's what we call it. And that there's a whole chapter in the book called Dreamer's Remorse. And we just felt like we'd made the dumbest, stupidest decision of our lives, and wanted to sell the boat and fly back home and beg for my job back.
Do something easy.
Yeah.
Conventional.
But really, this comes back to what you talk about, Chester, which is gratitude. One of the things that helped tip the scales for us is we looked at all the things that could go wrong, and we looked at all the things that could go right. And as we weighed the likelihood of our worst case scenarios versus the possibilities of what might blossom in this uncertainty, the scales soundly tipped in favor of doing this. The opportunity cost of not going was so high that it was like too good to miss. So we took this trip. But once we got there, that's when the doubt settled in. And we had to take stock of all the things that were going right, so that we didn't abandon ship. And that's what you teach, Chester, which is gratitude. Once we acknowledged all the things that were going right, we realized this is worth it. We need to stay the course. This is gonna work out, but it's not gonna be smooth, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah, that's what we call turning worry into wonder. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's such great advice for people right now in deepening the relationships with their families. Now, you talked about, relax, give yourself a break. One of your expressions that I love is when you say, when it comes to homeschooling, there are no educational emergencies, right? You don't have all the deadlines. Talk about some of the tools and the tricks that you guys used to deepen your relationship as a family, being in such a confined space. Some ideas that could really be helpful for parents right now, particularly in major metropolitans where, maybe they don't have a backyard. It really is confined. What were some of the things that you did regularly as a family to not only calm people down, but to deepen those relationships?
Thanks for asking, Chester. That was one of the things that actually surprised me the most when we moved on the sailboat. The whole experience we thought was designed to strengthen our family relationships. But once we got out there, even though we've gone to these extremes, we realized, nope, we still have to do the everyday little small thing of claiming time for our family, setting aside that time in the evening, making sure we're all going to sit around the table together for dinner. We realized that just because we were close and our boat was 38 feet by, I think, 21 feet, it was a pretty small space. Just because we were close to each other did not mean that we were connected. It did not mean that I knew what was, any number of the kids were thinking about or how they were feeling. And I would have to call them in one-on-one and make sure I still spent that time. We have to gather up as a family. And Eric actually started doing this thing. It's very effective, very easy. We would just take maybe 1 minute, because there were 7 of us, and each person would look in every other person's eyeballs, and just to have that moment where we actually looked into each other's eyes. That was one of the things that really helped us stay connected, was just claiming our daily family time and making sure we looked in each other's eyeballs and setting aside the time to have some one-on-one conversation. That it totally surprised me that we would have to do that, but I think you just have to.
I love that idea of just a 1 minute, looking into each other's eyes. So Eric, expand on that a little bit. Did you learn that from directing plays and whatnot, that you had to have that connection? I'm curious, where did that come from?
Maybe it came from the theater. There's a lot of, being on stage, it's a lot about just being present and listening. And when performing is about paying attention to what the other people are doing as you share a space. And there's no way to make it work without listening and paying attention and connecting. And I was going to add, one thing that we do that helps us connect is we share pictures every week. We do a thing called Weekend Pictures, where now that kids have phones, they throw their pictures up on the screen, and we go from youngest to oldest, and every kid gets to share pictures that they took that week, screen captures that they took of their favorite memes, or they share their favorite YouTube videos. And we just have the funnest time looking at pictures. And right now it might seem sort of antithetical. Nobody's leaving, so what are they going to take pictures of? This is a great time to review pictures that you already have and revisit those memories and let them grow deeper and richer in value, because they were hard-earned, and now is the time to really enjoy them.
I love that. In our team, what we do is we have hashtag FindYourGratitude, which, is a big part of our show. And I've committed to post a photo every day, just something simple that you're grateful for. Isn't it remarkable how just simple little things like that, gazing into each other's eyes, posting, something that's important to you, and then, of course, taking the time to discuss that. We got a question here. He says, turning worry into wonder is easier said than done. I mean, people really are worried. So how do you push that worry aside and turn it into wonder? And Emily, I want to ask you about this one, because you can say, oh, turn worry into wonder. You go, oh, gee, that sounds great. Okay, how do you do that? How do you
That's
push
nice.
that worry aside? Yeah.
We sell a little magic wand on our website that you can get that does that for
you. Worth every penny, I'm sure.
Well, I agree. I think it is not easy. And it's something, it's like kind of like meditation, where it takes effort, it takes practice, it takes a deliberate, concentrated desire. And I was a world-class worrier. I came from Warriors. And I did read a little from Dale Carnegie's book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. I never made it past the first chapter because I learned so much right there that I just had to put into practice. And so it's helpful to definitely be responsible and think about the things that could go wrong and try to have contingency plans. But it's not honest to just spend all your time dwelling in what could go wrong, because most of that stuff never happens. And we have a lot more power when we harness our imagination to think about what could go right. For me, I can't just think about it. I don't just like suddenly change my attitude. I will literally write it down. One of the practices we do along with that is turning our excuses into reasons. So we had this excuse not to go on a sail, but we had lots of excuses. We didn't have the money. I was afraid of deep water. We have 5 kids, one with special needs. 2 of them didn't know how to swim. And we turned those.
You make us sound irresponsible.
We turned those into reasons. And it was a challenging practice to actually say, what if we said our kids are the reason that we should go? We have these kids, especially one with special needs, who learns in a very concrete manner, something she's only going to learn through hands-on personal experience. And yes, I agree with your person who's asking the question. It is hard. It's hard, and it's worth the effort. Yeah. So when I realized that I can actually live with peace instead of with panic, I'm going to put in the effort that it takes to get to that peaceful place, because it allows, this is same for business. It allows you to be a better leader, which is what we are as parents in our family. And we're teaching our kids, we don't have to operate from a panic mode. We can acknowledge the fear, and we don't have to let fear make the decisions. So,
I love that expression of turn excuses into reasons, because it is so easy to talk yourself out of something, and Eric, you talk about being irresponsible, kids that don't know how to swim and whatnot. I grew up in a family of 5 boys, and the way my dad mitigated that, he said, you go ahead and do as many stupid things as you want, because he took out huge insurance policies on all of us. So he figured if anything bad happened, there was a bonus in there for him. Talk to me a little bit about the journaling.
I like your dad's style.
Yeah, he was a happy guy. Yeah, sure, go sailing, go surfing. My point is this: you talk about turning excuses into reason, and I loved your idea about journaling, about writing it down. Did you find that the writing it down part brought you some peace? And we've got a couple of minutes left here, so we're going to speed things up. Talk to me about that journaling. Why was that important to you, Eric?
Well, I'll just say
both journal. So
journaling is the only, because my mind will just spin and spin and spin. But journaling helps me actually kind of grab those ideas and wrestle them to the ground. And that clarity is so helpful for me. And I try to journal every day, and I keep track of how many words I journal. And that process is just a way of taking ideas and making them concrete. And I think, to me, it's amazing that how often just writing it down helps bring things into reality. I think it's such a beautiful process that not only brings us peace, but it helps us pull off the things that we're trying to make happen. And so, just like you talk about gratitude, journal is a part of my daily practice, because it does help me feel like I'm connecting with solid ground instead of just being adrift.
It's almost like you get to do a simulation of it. Like if you're a fighter pilot and you go into a simulator and you're going to practice in that, like journaling for me is a chance to run through the scenarios on paper. Yeah.
Well, that's excellent. Well, it's really interesting. I want to ask you a question about, we've got our campaign, #FindYourGratitude. So where did you find your gratitude today? We'll start with Emily first and then Eric. I know the day is only half over. So where did you find your gratitude this morning?
Chester, I find gratitude in just the simplest things. And as our, ability to move around gets reduced, and, we have greater parameters and limitations on what we can and can't do each day. Like, I'm just grateful to be with almost everyone in my family. Our daughter comes out of quarantine tomorrow, our 20-year-old, and just that everyone's healthy. Like, just something so basic as that. I'm so grateful.
Eric, you're up.
I would say, like Emily indicated, our daughter Allison, she just came back from Tokyo 2 weeks ago. She's been in quarantine in Midtown at her friend's apartment, and today is her last day. And I'm really grateful that she's here, she's healthy, and she's going to come home to our snug little apartment tomorrow. Can't wait for us all, all 7 of us to be back together again.
Yeah, 5 kids in one room. If you want to know how to do that, please give Emily and Eric a call. Well, okay, we got 5 minutes to go. We got 3 minutes to spend with you. So 3 things that you want people to take away, especially now with COVID and they're living on top of each other. You guys have incredible experience. Give me your 1, 2, 3 that you want people to take away from our show today.
I'm going to say, like Emily indicated, ask yourself what could go right. Get the whole picture, not just the worst case scenario, but ask yourself what could go right and enjoy those responses. Consider turning your excuses into reasons. The things that hold us back can also be our strongest motivators. And the third, if I can just jump in here, is to let it emerge. Sometimes we try to solve problems before they're even at our doorstep. Let them get closer. Sometimes they solve themselves. Sometimes the answers come along right with them, but let things emerge. Don't try to make it all happen at once.
And if I could just add one bit of encouragement to all our courageous parents out there, if you put your relationship first and the schoolwork second, you will probably have an amazing experience.
I love that. Put your kids first. Create great memories. I love your three. What can go right? Turn excuses into reasons and let it emerge, because everything is so fluid and so changing. Well, listen, you guys know this. We've known each other for a while now. You're two of my most favorite people. You live amazing lives. Quick, tell everybody where they can find more information about having you come speak to their organizations, more about the book, your websites, and why the phone should be ringing off the hook as soon as this show is over.
Well, you can find us at 7 at Sea. I'll just get you, this is the book, and that's our website as well, 7atsea.com. And any way you want to connect to us, you can find from 7 at Sea.
That's amazing. Well, listen, thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate your time, and we're going to take a couple of minutes to introduce our next guest. So everybody wave to Emily and Eric, and thank you so much.
We love you, Chester. Thank you.
Awesome. Love you too, man. Cheers. Hey, well, that was amazing. I want to just thank you for tuning in, and I want to encourage you to show up next Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern. We've got one of the most interesting characters you'll ever meet, and I think that's the best way to describe Chris Schembra. He's written a book called Gratitude and Pasta, the secret sauce for human connection. He's done all kinds of stuff on Broadway as well. He's organized these pasta dinners where people can get to know each other and share really meaningful experiences. I was on his podcast and got to meet him about a year ago. You can get his book on Amazon. It's going to be an amazing conversation. We're actually going to have a virtual pasta dinner. So if you want to delay on the East Coast your lunch till 1 o'clock, West Coast, have it a little earlier. Have a plate of pasta, get ready to go. Well, as always, we encourage you to be curious, to be kind, to lead with gratitude. We've got a wonderful website, leadingwithgratitudebook.com, where you can find all kinds of interesting information about our work. We've also got a wonderful training company, The Culture Works. And if you go there, you can actually get a lot of really free downloads at thecultureworks.com, motivators, assessments, and on and on. In this time where we're living on top of each other and things are getting a little crazy, I'd really encourage you to do three things. Be grateful, be kind, and take it home. Be grateful for the things that we do have, not worrying about the things we don't have. Be kind. Understand that everybody's having a tough time, especially now. And don't forget to take these wonderful gratitude practices home. I love what Erik and Emily said. Don't worry so much about the schoolwork. Worry about your kids. Embrace the moment. And if you join us and create a movement, it's hashtag Find Your Gratitude. Post a little picture, something that you were grateful for today. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to all the wonderful healthcare workers that are out there keeping us safe. Well, that's a toss of appreciation to all you great folks out there. Lead with gratitude. Be kind, be grateful, take it home. See you next Tuesday with my great friend, Chris Schembra. The secret sauce for human connection, gratitude and pasta. You're going to love it. Don't miss it. Take care, everybody. Be safe. Wash your hands. Cheers.